So it would seem that the concept of paideia is complete, if you will. It's all encompassing for a society. And in that society, there are different things that the Greeks would want to emphasize the ideals of freedom and virtue and kingliness within the individual that, well, I think we could easily observe has created one of the most flourishing, wonderful, beautiful societies that the world has ever known in Western civilization. So, as we specifically look to encourage and foster a Christian paideia within each one of our children, what might be a few examples of some things that classical Christian education does differently in the school setting versus a government school? If we are pursuing virtue and to learn to live well and be well-rounded individuals before our God, how would that look? Can you give us a few examples of the day-to-day life of a student that might be focusing them in that direction?
Okay, I'll give you two examples. One would be the fine arts.
Hmm.
So the fine arts are a big part of classical Christian education because we care about mostly the human experience, and things like beauty are part of the human experience. I take my dog for a walk at the sunset. She doesn't see the sunset. She's not human, right? That's a
Right.
distinctly human thing, the apprehension of beauty. And so studying art, making art, creating it, enjoying it, whether that's song or painting or sculpture or acting, whatever it might be, is a core element of what it means to be human. And so we include that within our curriculum for everyone. Even if a student isn't musically inclined, well, we're going to make him musically inclined because we're commanded to sing. So we're going to sing. There will be a lot of singing. That's one difference that you'll see. There's a lot of singing in classical Christian
I've heard
schools.
tell of these singing schools.
Yes.
What?
So a singing school is one that just recognizes that we are commanded to sing, and so we're going to.
Hmm.
And so very often you'll start the day off with, say, maybe a matin service. You bring all of the students together, sing a couple of songs, maybe the doxology or something. And then, off to class you go. But when you get to class, most of the time, they'll start with a song.
Hmm.
The whole class together will sing, and then they sit down and begin their studies. And so it just sort of inculcates, in the student this discipline of singing and this rhythm of life that this connectedness to music that is such an important part of the human experience that most people just simply miss out on unless they're listening to Taylor Swift.
That's interesting, though. I mean, you start it, there's an initiation of worship of your God and
Mm.
that rhythm that it builds into life, as opposed to starting your day with a Prussian military pledge, right? Uh, but that oriented, I mean, it's almost liturgical.
It is liturgical, yes, very much so.
Interesting. Interesting.
So here's another example I'll give you. Math,
Ooh,
okay?
never very good at it.
That's okay. So in a government school and in a classical Christian school, there will be things that are similar in the math class. They will both teach the student that 2 plus 2 equals 4. And they might even do it in the same way, using the same, lesson plan almost. But in the government school, that's where it ends. They teach you that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and then you move on to the next thing.
Give it effect.
It's just a fact, and you learn it, and that's it. Our approach is that we actually want to know why 2 plus 2 equals 4. It is a fascinating thing that throughout all of human history and all of the created universe, every time you have 2 of something and you add 2 more of that thing, you get
Was
4.
4.
You never get 5, you never get 6, you never get 100. You always get 4 every single time without exception.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, part of it is that God has created the universe a certain way, with a certain order,
Mm.
and he's determined that when you have 2 of something and you add 2 more to it, you have 4 of them. And so math is the thoughts of God communicated through numbers. And so that's how we approach math is, of course, we're going to learn that 2 plus 2 equals 4. But what we're really doing is interacting with the thoughts of God. presented to us in numbers.
And I've heard it's good that a Christian should learn to think God's thoughts after him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a classic approach to that lens as you study
Mm-hmm.
theology. Is that true in all facets of subject within classical Christian education?
Yeah, that's the whole goal. So sometimes we'll talk about studying. So we say we're going to orient the student to God and the world he has created by studying his special and natural revelation. So, in other words, his special revelation is the Word of God. So we're going to study the Word of God and the way in which God reveals himself through that. And then we're also going to study natural revelation, which is the created cosmos, because he reveals himself through his creation. And so we study physics and we study math and we study biology and we study history in order to see how God reveals himself through those things so that we can better know him. And then once we know him, then we can come to know the things that he has created, because you can't know a thing if you don't know who created the thing.
Yeah, you can maybe know the fact of it, but you can't truly understand it.
But you can't, exactly, you can't know a thing disconnected from the purpose for which it was made.
Sure.
And so you have to know the God who made the thing and the purpose for which he made the thing in order to understand the thing.
Sounds like maybe why most children leave their math class going, well, why do I need to know the Pythagorean theorem? It becomes this utilitarian pragmatism of, well, unless you're going to go be an engineer, it's the only reason you really need to learn math. Not a full-bodied understanding of this is the way that your God has ordered the universe, and these are observable patterns and things that you can think after the mind of God to recognize the great beauty and order with which he's created the world. That sounds pretty cool.
It is very cool.